Hey everybody, great to be learning with you today as we continue our studies of the laws of Challah and take a look at the mitzvah of hafrashat Challah, the mitzvah to separate a little bit of Challah from the batch that you make. In today's lesson, we're going to cover two things. First, we'll do a general overview of the laws of hafrashat Challah, and then we'll explore a reason for why we actually separate Challah to help us better understand the reason behind this mitzvah. But first, a quick review. In order for a person to have the opportunity to be mafresh challah, to separate challah, the challah that you have has to come from the 5 grains. That means that the dough is made from grain that belongs to either wheat, barley, oat, rye, spelt, or rye, otherwise known as browse, the 5 grains. And if it comes from one of those 5 grains, then it is subject to the mitzvah of hafrashat Challah. Not only that, but the dough has to be kneaded by a Jewish person. And finally, you have to have a certain amount of flour, even if it does come from the 5 grains, barley, rye, oat, wheat, and spelt. It has to also meet a certain minimum amount. And that minimum amount generally is defined as being between 12 and 16 cups of flour. There's different opinions about how much exactly a person would have to use in order for the mitzvah of hafrashat Challah to apply. But in general, if a person is using at least 12 cups of flour, possibly even as much as 16, then a person would be able to do the mitzvah of hafrashat Challah, to separate Challah with a bracha. And that equals approximately the size of 1 5-pound bag of all-purpose flour. Now, if a person uses less than that amount, then the mitzvah of challah would still apply, but without the bracha itself. Now, what is that bracha? Well, again, if you have the right amount of dough and you're using the proper shiur, the proper measurement, the right amount of flour, then the bracha is Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahafrish Challah. Blessed are you, Hashem, creator of the world, who has given us an opportunity to sanctify him and ourselves with mitzvot regarding the separation of Challah, which is a separation of a little piece of dough from the big batch that a person is making. But why does a person actually do this mitzvah? We understand now when it would apply, but why do we do it? And here, we have to look back at something that the Torah tells us in Sefer Bimidbar. There, the Torah told us that if a person has grain, then the choicest part of that grain, reshit, arisotechem, the very choicest and first parts of a person's crops should belong to the Kohen. It's a gift to the Kohen. And so to recall that mitzvah, we take a little bit of challah today, even though we don't have Kohanim and a Beit HaMikdash to share this challah with. We still do it as a remembrance of the mitzvah that was laid out for us in Sefer Bimidbar. Practically, even without a Beit HaMikdash and even without a Kohen to give it to, there is still another value to doing the mitzvah today, and that is that it teaches generosity. Understanding that not everything we have is ours and that we are obliged to give a little bit back and not to keep everything for ourselves. To take a little bit of some of the things that we have and to dedicate it to a higher purpose is perhaps the deeper meaning of hafrashat Challah, and one that we can still think about when we do the mitzvah today. So today we had an opportunity to look at some of the conditions that have to be met in order for the mitzvah of hafrashat Challah to apply. We also explored a couple of reasons why we still do hafrashat Challah today. And hopefully when we're together in class, we'll have an opportunity to explore this topic in some more detail through some hands-on learning and activities. Great learning with you, and looking forward to continuing the learning when we return.